Hello and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Before we talk about this, ultimately inconsequential thing that we call wrestling that we fans hold so dear, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the tragic shooting that happened in Las Vegas earlier this week. My mind is very heavy with the news and just the incredible amount of loss, the senseless loss, really. I don't want to talk too much about it without, at the risk of getting political about it, because I think all conversations about this kind of head toward that. I don't want to talk about it there, but it's definitely hits close to home for me. Las Vegas, it's pretty far away from Reno, but it's still my state, so it's definitely feels extra heavy for me with this news. My heart goes out to all of the people who have been impacted by this, the lives lost, the families that have been torn apart by this, and that's all I can really say. Both Raw and Smackdown this week had a moment of silence at the top of the show for the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. Following Raw's moment of silence, we went right into a match between Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman. These two have wrestled on TV a couple of times before, once in September of last year and once in January. Both had inconclusive finishes. That was not the case for this match. This had a decisive finish of Braun Strowman not only blocking the knee lift with a clothesline, but also hitting Rollins with a running power slam to win the match in decisive fashion. So very strong look by Strowman here to take out both Ambrose and Rollins in consecutive weeks cleanly. Again, it's very strong for him. Doesn't say so much about the tag team championships and just the value of that, because Ambrose comes out afterward after Strowman wants to do some more beatdown of Rollins. Ambrose tries to make the save, but that gets thwarted. Strowman single-handedly beats both tag team champions. And I've talked before, historically, how much I hate when like a singles guy like takes out the tag team champions, because it makes the belts kind of like worthless and it makes the team kind of weak, makes the whole division weak. I'm of two minds about it. I like to see Strowman get his heat back after No Mercy, but at the same time, at the expense of the tag team champions, it's a weird thing, because like Strowman needs to beat big names to get his heat back, so it kind of had to be these guys. But at the same time, it's like they're the tag champs. I'm conflicted about it. Backstage, Mickie James goes to her dressing room to find it's been filled with old person paraphernalia like a walker and Depends, what have you. She goes to Alexa Bliss's dressing room to confront her, but then Nia Jax greets her at the door. And I guess Nia and Alexa are friends again. They're billed as frenemies throughout the show. Like, I guess that big turn that Nia did to Alexa a few weeks ago before No Mercy, I guess it's just water under the bridge now. We're just going to forget that ever happened. When Alexa called Mickie an old lady last week, I thought that I was afraid it was going to go down this route of like, let's just use the most crass, lowest common denominator ways to make fun of Mickie for her age. It's kind of turning into the Mickie James thing once again. But like, both scenarios are equally outlandish, because like Lay Cool called Mickie James fat when she wasn't fat. Like, she was like had a thicker build than like most of the women at the time. Like, she was by no means fat. And here it's like Mickie James, she's 38 years old. Like, and I know that in like legitimate sports there aren't a lot of athletes that play that late into their 30s and their 40s, whatever. But I mean, in wrestling, 38's the new 28. So I think that the logic behind the whole ageism storyline here in the feud with that is a little silly. Elias taking on Titus O'Neil. I can't remember the last time Titus actually wrestled on TV, and neither can Booker, so I guess we're even. Elias wins with very similar tactics from the previous week. He uses Apollo Crews as a distraction to beat Titus with the drift away. After the match, Apollo gets to the ring and confronts Elias before he powders and walks off. So I'm not sure if they're going to try and stretch this feud out a little longer, or they're going to give Elias something with a little more heft in time for TLC. I mean, either way, now Elias is 3-0 against Titus worldwide, twice against Apollo Crews and once against Titus. All he needs to do now is beat Akira Tozawa in singles action. He'll complete the set. Up next, Nia Jax taking on the ancient, decrepit, 38-year-old Mickie James. This is actually a really good match to watch. I think it's a really good story, really good flow. The pacing was great. I think Mickie looked very strong. Nia looks good here, and even though she ultimately lost via disqualification when Alexa Bliss ran in and cost Mickie the match, I think everyone looked good at the end of it, because Mickie looks very strong here. If she can hold her own against Nia Jax, then she definitely looks like a credible threat against Alexa Bliss. She does, and Mickie basically wins the segment. Not only does she win by disqualification, she also lays out Alexa with a mitt kick after the match on the outside. So good look for Mickie James this week. The continuing adventures of Matt Hardy and Jason Jordan taking on Anderson and Gallows. I feel really bad for Hardy and Jordan here, because I feel like these are both, they're put together as a creative stopgap for the two of them, because Matt's kind of lost in the shuffle with Jeff being injured, and they seemingly can't pull the trigger on the broken gimmick yet. And with Jason Jordan, all the hype and everything surrounded the whole announcement of him being Kurt's son, now after the Miz his feud, he's kind of like lost in the shuffle. Again, he has no real feud to work with, so they're kind of put together as a team out of necessity. But that being said, I just don't see any chemistry with these two here. The match was okay. Anderson and Gallows win the match after Anderson pins Matt Hardy after the Magic Killer. So, you know, a decent match, but again, I'm just not feeling this team of Jordan and Hardy, and I really hope that each person goes off and does something different soon. IC title match as The Miz defends against Roman Reigns, but before that happens, The Miz and The Miz Taraj come out doing the whole Shield entrance, going through the crowd and everything like the Shield used to do. I feel like there has to be a way to do a reunion angle that does not hit you over the head with its build, just hitting you over the head, say, we're doing this reunion angle, here's like how it's going to happen, here are the preceding events that will lead to this reunion, and we're going to get more of that later in the night. But first, you know, Roman does kill Curtis and Bo before the match officially begins, so they're taken out of the equation. Another solid match between these two, much like last week. Roman is poised to win, but Hark, who shows up, but the Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus, they showed up earlier in the night to pick the bones of Rollins and Ambrose after Strowman destroyed the both of them. They come out here again, and the three of them, the Bar and Miz, the Bar Mitzvah, I'm going to give credit to Vinny Massaro on that one on Twitter, they destroy Roman Reigns, triple powerbomb onto him, does the Shield pose, and it's just like, again, so blatantly obvious. I will say thank God that they swapped out the Bo and Curtis with Cesaro and Sheamus here. Like, no disrespect to the Miz Taraj here, but I mean, if they're going to do a Shield reunion, like I said last week, it feels wasted on the Miz Taraj. Like, they're not on the level of the Shield and the Miz. So to have Cesaro and Sheamus, who have been booked very competently and strongly against, you know, Rollins and Ambrose over the last several weeks, I think that makes a lot more sense. And I'm actually looking forward to this now. Finn Balor cuts a promo on Bray Wyatt. He calls him out saying, come out here for another go. Bray Wyatt shows up on the big screen and says, show your true face and I'll show you mine. Sister Abigail is alive and she's dying to meet you. And with that, you see Bray leaning over on the rocking chair, and as a cross dissolve into Bray dressed in like makeup and like wearing like a big burlap thing, like kind of like a creepy scarecrow. To describe it, you know, to you in this way, it makes it sound kind of hokey. I think you should just check it out for yourself. And those of you who saw it, you might think that this is cheesy, you might not like it. I loved it. I thought this was great. Like one of the coolest Bray Wyatt promos I've seen in a long time, because I've said for weeks how much I hate his promos now, but this one felt different. And the short one he had earlier in the night where he kept repeating to himself, she never lied to me, she never lied to me, and like it builds and it transitions into this later thing. I thought it was great, and now I'm really excited about this. Like, he's got, I don't know, is it split personality, is it demonic possession? Because now from what I've read in the news that, like, that these two are going to wrestle again at TLC, but Bray will be wrestling billed as the name Sister Abigail, which is like, whoa, that's just crazy to think. Like, he's adopting the Sister Abigail name now. Like, for a long time, people have wanted, oh, so-and-so lady should come out as Sister Abigail. I think that no matter who they would ever peg to be Sister Abigail, that would never work out and fans would shit all over it. So I think it's kind of an ingenious way to get around that. Let's have Bray be like possessed, or like have like kind of a psycho thing, Norman Bates thing, where he believes he's Sister Abigail. Like, that's, I mean, if this is like the evolution we've needed for Bray Wyatt for all this time, and like this is how we're going to get to that point, I think that's brilliant. I'm really excited for this now. Like, not so much about Finn. I just want to see how Bray and the Sister Abigail thing is going to turn out. Up next, Sasha Banks and Bayley take on Emma and Alicia Fox. It's the same match from last week, except instead of Nia Jax, it's Alicia Fox. Alicia might be embarrassed about her career yet. There's nothing to be embarrassed about on Monday because she had 2 segments on Raw. And, you know, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, her recent podcast interview with Lillian Garcia, where she said she was embarrassed about her career. I'm not saying she does not have a reason to feel embarrassed, just the way she's been treated and portrayed. But I mean, still, I mean, all the respect in the world for her to have a career in WWE for as long as she has. You know, not much to say about the match. Emma bails on Alicia Fox, and Sasha and Bayley win. But that's, I think, really the interesting thing is that so soon after having this kind of like newsworthy comment on a podcast, Alicia does get featured on Raw in like 2 segments. For the second week in a row, the Cruiserweights close out Raw in the main event segment as Enzo comes out to address the Cruiserweight division. He cuts a very, very heel promo here, but it's also very entertaining, and the crowd's popping for it. Is he a face? Is he a heel? He's whatever you want him to be. The Cruiserweight roster comes out and surrounds the ring, and Enzo just cuts them down one by one, all except for Akira Tozawa, which I was kind of funny. And people were all online were going, oh, he's burying the division. Like, well, yeah, like his whole gimmick is he cuts people down in general, and is a heel, so like he's gonna get his comeuppance. Like, don't worry, folks. Like, I know he talked a lot of shit in that promo, but like he's gonna get his. He already got his last week. He's gonna get it again. Kurt Angle comes out, introduces Kalisto as Enzo's new feud du jour, because now all the Cruiserweights, they can't touch him because they'll get fired if they touch him. So Kalisto's new to the 205 Live roster. It's only 11 months late, but you know, better late than never. So Kalisto lays out Enzo and stands tall at the end of this bit. And I think that's good. You know, it's like, it's a good fodder for Enzo to get himself more over as a heel. Kalisto, I think, needed this change of pace. He fits right at home with 205 Live. Why they waited this long to put him there, I have no idea. And yeah, I think it'll be good for both guys in this feud. The final thing we see on Raw this week is Roman Reigns sitting in his locker room, like recovering from his beating from earlier in the night, and then he looks up and sees Dean Ambrose. He stands up. In comes Seth Rollins. They stand next to each other for a couple of seconds, and then Rollins and Ambrose split away, and that's how the show ends. Like, again, they're just like beating into your head. We're gonna do the Shield reunion, motherfucker. I make fun of it, but I'm excited about this, and I think it's gonna be a huge deal when the Shield officially reunites, probably as early as next week, because Raw next week is gonna be in Indianapolis. It's the building they debuted in and the building that they broke up in, so should be very interesting next week on Raw. Before we move on to SmackDown, this week's edition of Who Wore It Better is brought to you by SeatGeek. It's an app you can download on your iOS or Android device that gathers ticket information from all over the place for your next concert, sporting event, or WWE show. Find the best ticket deal possible. The tickets are color-coded red to green. They're given a numerical score of 1 to 100. You know exactly what kind of deal, and in some cases, what kind of view you're getting with your SeatGeek tickets. If you want to save money on your next ticket purchase, go download the SeatGeek app with the link at the top of this description, then go to the Accounts tab, enter Zane at the promo code, and get $20 back on your first ticket purchase. After another moment of silence for the Las Vegas shooting, SmackDown officially opens up with Renee Young interviewing Shinsuke Nakamura in the ring. At least took out his mouth guard this time. As Shinsuke is talking, he's interrupted by the Singh brothers on the ramp, and they do their whole shtick to introduce Jinder Mahal. But then from behind, out comes Jinder Mahal to sneak attack Shinsuke. And then as Shinsuke makes his comeback at one point, he takes one of the Singh brothers and like tries to throw him out of the ring. But like the Singh brothers eats shit on the middle rope, like snaps his head on it. It looked very brutal, kind of like a scary looking bump there. So then the numbers game does catch up to Shinsuke, and Jinder Mahal takes him out with the Colossus to stand tall at the end of the segment. Not including a backstage promo Jinder cuts later in the night, this build has basically been 2 weeks of one-sided insults over one of the guys' faces, and then the third week, Shinsuke gets a leg up physically, and then this one, Jinder gets his receipt. So that's been pretty much the whole build for this WWE Championship match. It's been very bland, because you have one guy in Jinder Mahal who carries himself like a champion, has a great look, but does not quite have the charisma to back up his push. Then you've got Shinsuke Nakamura, who's very great in the ring and has a lot of charisma in different ways, just not so much in promos, which is unfortunate because they're giving him a lot of opportunities to talk here. I get the fact that we can't have them fighting each other every week because that would like diminish the payoff of their pay-per-view match, but they could at least try and do something with them that's more interesting than what they did. Again, the whole 3 weeks of making fun of Shinsuke's face was just like, it was interesting at first, then it got super old. I feel like when they did the payoff with Shinsuke, like in the picture and moving, that really should have been like the end of the second week, not the third. Women's tag team match as Becky Lynch and Charlotte take on Natalya and Carmella. More lack of trust and more tension between Natalya and Carmella over the championship and the Money in the Bank briefcase. From a kayfabe standpoint, if these two have such a lack of trust toward each other, why are they partnering so much these last couple of months? The heels win after Carmella KOs Becky Lynch with the briefcase. Natalya makes Charlotte tap out with a sharpshooter, so it gets her a leg up going into the Women's Championship match at Hell in a Cell. That's all I can really say. Up next, the glorious one, Bobby Roode takes on Mike Kanellis. And the time it took me to say those words, Bobby Roode won handily with the glorious DDT. As he's celebrating in the ring, Dolph Ziggler interrupts and does this big silly entrance that really got a pop and a laugh out of me, with like a big drum and tinsel and a popper thing and noisemakers and an air horn. He's grabbing these things all along his walk down the ramp. Like, did he like hide them there before the show? Did he have somebody leave them there? So many questions. Dolph tells Bobby he'll never be anything more than just an entrance, but Bobby Roode counters that by basically proving him right by doing the glorious taunt and activating his music and light cue. Considering how often he does that taunt in his matches, I'm surprised that cue hasn't happened mid-match before. The Usos read the New Day their rights. This wasn't so much of a right reading as it was the same promo we've seen from the Usos a lot lately. The New Day interrupt before the Usos can finish and they cut a promo of their own. It's actually a pretty good promo. I think both teams combined do a very good job of putting all the parties involved over going into what I imagine is this blow-off match at Hell in a Cell, and that's pretty much it. Like, Usos cut their standard promo, the New Day cut their standard promo, and that's basically it. It didn't get me any more hype for their match on Sunday than a week ago, but it didn't really hurt either. And speaking of hype, it was announced that the kickoff match for Sunday will be the Hype Bros taking on Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable. Other than money, what kind of incentives did the company offer Shelton Benjamin to re-sign with them? Because he's just been totally wasted here. In a rematch from last week, we have Ty Dillon Dillinger taking on Baron Corbin in singles action. Corbin's dominating for most of this match. Then out of nowhere, Ty rolls up with a small package and wins the match. Like, that seems to be Corbin's kryptonite. He always seems to lose via fluke roll-up. He did it like twice to Sami Zayn in the past, and now he's doing it here to Ty Dillinger. Aren't we supposed to be making him look good for his match on Sunday against AJ Styles? Styles gets on the big screen and says, you know, shortcuts aren't going to work with AJ Styles. You know, maybe he should try. It works for his opponents. Up next, Aiden English taking on Randy Orton. I think this is a rematch from like a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, in fact. Rusev is with English here. Are they an official like pairing now, like, or is it just kind of a convenient tie-in because last week Aiden English was the MC for Rusev Day? I think that if they're actually a team, it's going to be more of like a downgrade for Rusev than an upgrade for English. Orton does swiftly defeat Aiden English with the RKO. A great shot after he hits the move of like Orton sitting up there, and over his shoulder you see Rusev just looking like beside himself, just like despondent over what he just saw. So Orton wins, and Rusev tries to like sneak in with a sneak attack, but Orton cuts him off there, and that's pretty much it. I actually kind of like the build for this match because each guy has like a really quick win over the other. I certainly hope their Hell in a Cell match, or their match at Hell in a Cell, goes longer. The final segment of the night is Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens face to face, or how many different ways can we advertise an in-ring promo in a single night? Shane comes out first and says that the Hell in a Cell match on Sunday will be a Falls Count Anywhere match, which seems kind of excessive, but I guess this is now their excuse to say, well, we're going to work outside the cell in this match here. Kevin Owens appears in the crowd, but he does not want to engage with Shane. Shane chases him up the stairs into the concourse, and they brawl. Kevin Owens powerbombs Shane through a merchandise table and then makes his way back into the ring, cuts his own promo. He gets his piece now. Then Shane staggers his way down the stairs and everything into the arena. There's this one shot where like this woman like in the crowd like gets up and like twerks in front of Shane. She really wanted to be on TV. Kevin and Shane brawl some more on the outside, then into the ring, and Kevin hits Shane with a pop-up powerbomb to end the segment. Very good stuff. I love the physicality. I love the promos by both guys. This was by far the best part of the whole night. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. This week I'm going with Raw once again. I think that this show had a lot more working for it than SmackDown did, which is unfortunate because SmackDown was the go-home show before their pay-per-view. With Raw, you had Braun versus Rollins, which was actually a very enjoyable match. The Bray Wyatt stuff is super intriguing. I mean, like, I know that this company has a tendency to screw things like this up, but like, man, just that moment and that revelation was like really chilling and captivating. I loved it. The build of the Shield reunion, again, it hits you over the head with it, but I mean, I love the stuff like the incorporating the bar, getting them involved now. That was really good stuff. And then the Cruiserweight segment at the end, again, great stuff by Enzo on the microphone. And a nice introduction. It's kind of like a revitalizing of Kalisto here in this new position. The things that I didn't like about Raw, I've mentioned earlier, like the whole lack of logic with the ageism storyline between Alexa and Mickie. Even though the Mickie James Nia Jax match was great, I think that the whole logic behind the feud between Mickie and Alexa is kind of like, it seems, again, it's very black and white, very one-dimensional. And again, just the whole thing with Nia and Alexa, they're back together again, even though they had this big dramatic turn a couple weeks ago before No Mercy, and like now they're just fine again. With SmackDown, like I just said, I loved the Shane, Kevin Owens stuff. Great way to end the show. I love the build for this feud. And Dolph Ziggler's entrance got a laugh out of me. I just love the silliness of him doing the drums and like the noisemakers and everything. Just, it made me laugh, so that gets a pro in my book. I just don't like the build they've been having for the Shinsuke Jinder match. This is not a build befitting one of your top championships, your prestigious WWE Championship. Again, poor Baron Corbin, just the way he's been treated over the last several weeks. I mean, is what he did, talking down to that concussion expert in the locker room in front of everybody, is that really proportional to the punishment he's getting here on television? I just don't get it. And again, it's more of the sameness, more repetition. Like, I feel like a lot of the matches we're seeing here are just kind of like retreads of things we've seen 1, 2, 3 weeks ago. It's getting really old on SmackDown. That's kind of my take on it. Raw wins this week. It had a lot of interesting storylines involving multiple people. A really creative redirection of where I thought the Shield reunion was going to go in terms of who their foils were going to be. And it really injected new life into a character I had left for dead in Bray Wyatt. So I'm really curious about where Raw is going as opposed to SmackDown, which is sad because, hey, go home week. Before I sign off for the week, I do want to thank all those who bought my t-shirts through ProWrestlingTees.com during the month of September. The proceeds from those shirt sales went to the Houston Food Bank and the Houston Humane Society in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. You guys raised $37 in shirt profit, which I then doubled to make it, I believe, $74 to those organizations, split among them. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that money does go a long way. And so this month, for October, before, I'm doing it all over again. But this month, the proceeds from my shirt sales at ProWrestlingTees.com/wrestlingwithregret will go to United for Puerto Rico. Of course, as many of you know, Puerto Rico has been devastated by a pair of massive hurricanes. They need all the help they can get. So again, if you've been holding out on buying a Wrestling with Regret t-shirt and you've been waiting for just the right moment, for just the right reason, now is a very good reason. And again, those proceeds that'll be raised from you guys, I will double the final total at the end of the month and donate all that to United for Puerto Rico. So I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.